Alright guys, in this video we're taking a couple of minutes to talk about some very interesting things that PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan had to say, specifically focusing on why Sony is deciding not to release their exclusive games day and date into the rebranded PlayStation Plus service. This is something that a lot of people have been discussing, but we're also going to talk about why Sony apparently doesn't believe video game subscriptions will dominate like Spotify or Netflix. I wanted to take a couple of minutes in a separate video outside of my stream that I did to talk about this because I imagine that not everybody tuned in to that 2.5 hour long stream. So before we get into it, do me a favor, be sure to hit the like button to help the video out and show it your support. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well. So reading here from PlayStation Lifestyle, they say Sony kicked off this Tuesday by finally unveiling what's been codenamed Project Spartacus with an all-new PlayStation Plus that has 3-tier levels of subscriptions. Many players were quick to notice that none of the tiers mentioned anything about releasing first-party PlayStation Studios games into PlayStation Plus, and that's because Jim Ryan just doesn't feel that's a good idea for PlayStation. In an interview with GamesIndustry.biz, Ryan spoke about launching first-party games into their service. It's part of what made Xbox Game Pass so popular, and many players have been wondering if Sony would start doing the same thing. And so this is what Jim Ryan had to say. We feel like we are in a good virtuous cycle with the studios where investment delivers success, which enables yet more investment, which delivers yet more success. We like that cycle and we think our gamers like that cycle. Putting our own games into the service or any of our services upon their release, as you well know, this is not a road that we've gone down in the past, and it's not a road that we're going to go down with this new service. We feel if we were to do that with the games that we make at PlayStation Studios, that virtuous cycle will be broken. The level of investment that we need to make in our studios would not be possible, and we think the knock-on effect on quality of the games that we make would not be something gamers want. All I'm talking to today is the approach we're taking in the short term, the way our publishing model works right now. It doesn't make any sense, but things can change very quickly in this industry, as we all know. And so that is Jim Ryan's answer as to why they are not following Microsoft's approach with their subscription service, and they are choosing not to release their first-party titles day and date into any of the 3 subscription tiers offered with this PlayStation Plus rebrand. And to give my thoughts on this, it's interesting. This comment from Jim Ryan and this answer from Jim Ryan is causing a bit of a divide where there are some PlayStation fans who believe that, well, this makes sense. Sony produces very high quality games. The production values of these games are very high, and this is kind of what Sony is known for. And so if Jim Ryan's telling us that they wouldn't be able to afford to make the same type of investments into their games and into their studios if they were to suddenly start putting their games into a service day and date, then that makes sense. And we maybe agree with Jim Ryan because we don't want to see the quality of these games, these AAA first-party games that we all enjoy, go down or suffer because of something like that. But there are also people who believe that Jim Ryan is maybe lying a little bit here or trying to finesse us, if you want to put it that way. And the reason why they think this is because they believe that this just simply isn't true. They believe that Sony could very well do this and match Microsoft and take games like Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok and drop them into a service day and date and still make more than enough money, and certainly enough money to be able to make that same type of investment that they're currently making into these studios and into these AAA games. Now, where I stand with this, it's pretty simple, really. I do not know if what Jim Ryan is saying here is the absolute truth. No one can really know because we are not seeing it from the same point of view as Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan is the CEO of PlayStation, so he knows what's going on from top to bottom. He knows the ins and the outs, and he knows exactly where their money is going, where the investments are being made, and how much they are making off of these investments. We don't know this exactly, and so with this in mind, all I can do is kind of sit back and say, well, I do like PlayStation's first-party games. That's what attracts me to the platform. That's why I buy these games and I play them. And so if Jim Ryan's sitting here telling me, well, you know, we're not doing this because we want to maintain the same quality and the same cycle that we've had and what we've kind of stuck to all this time and we don't really want to break that cycle, I'm all for that. I actually have no problem with that whatsoever. But I can also understand why there are some people who just kind of don't want to hear this. They want to see Sony match Microsoft because, I mean, let's be honest, if Sony were to drop all of their games into PlayStation Plus day and date, I mean, a lot of people would be very happy about that. They would love to have access to these games for such a cheap price point, $10 or whatever it's going to be for the premium tier, $18. Still a pretty good value if you're going to be getting day and date games. So I understand why people want that and why they expect Sony to match it. But I do understand what Jim Ryan's saying here. And I think if you really want to boil it down, just look at what he's saying at the bottom here, where he says it just doesn't make sense. I think people forget that Sony is still selling millions upon millions of copies of their exclusive games at full price. And if they were to drop these games into a service day and date, there's no doubt that that would dramatically affect the amount of copies they would sell at full price, probably negatively. And Sony knows this, Jim Ryan knows this, and that's why it doesn't make sense for them from a business standpoint. But what I do want to point out here, and what I want everybody to pay attention to, is that he does say that, look, they're talking about the short term. And I think this is extremely wise of Jim Ryan to say. And I think that if you are a PlayStation fan who is convinced that Sony will never do day and date, you need to really listen and pay attention to what Jim is saying here, because he's literally saying that we don't know what's going to happen in the future, in the long term, the next 10 years or so, right? No one knows. And he's just simply trying to say that the time could come where they have to suddenly pivot and make a pretty dramatic change. And what he's saying right now may not be true 5 years from now, 8 years from now, whatever it may be. Sony may have to alter their business model. And right now, he's just simply saying it doesn't make sense for them because the model that they're currently following works for them and it works well. So, I'll be interested to see what you guys have to say about that. But I want to move on to the next set of quotes from Jim Ryan, where he explains why PlayStation is not pursuing the Game Pass model and they are not trying to be the Netflix of gaming. In fact, it seems like Jim Ryan is not convinced at all that that is what the future of gaming is going to be. So this is reading from gamesindustry.biz, where they say the subscription business model in video games is a growing one. Xbox announced in January it has over 25 million subscribers to Game Pass, and that number keeps on rising. What's not so clear is the ultimate potential of all this. Could it possibly become the dominant model in games like it has with music and TV? Jim Ryan isn't convinced. Subscriptions have certainly grown in importance over the course of the last few years, he concludes. Our PlayStation Plus subscribers number has grown from 0 in 2010 to 48 million now, and we anticipate for our services that we will see further growth for the subscriber number. But the medium of gaming is so very different to music and to linear entertainment that I don't think we'll see it go to the levels that we see with Spotify and Netflix. Some of the live service games that are proving very successful these days, and I'm not restricting this comment to console, they're effectively subscription services in themselves, and they're very much tailored to the needs of the gamer who loves whatever game that they spend hours and hours with month after month after month. That phenomenon of the live service game that has in a very large part fueled the enormous growth in the gaming industry that we've seen over the last 10 years, I think that trend towards live services will continue. And if you look for a model in our category of entertainment which supports sustained engagement over a long period of time, live service games arguably fit that bill better than a subscription service. Now, this is such an important quote from Jim Ryan, and I know that a lot of PlayStation fans are going to be like, why is Sony yet again talking about live service? We feel like at this point, it's become the main focus for Sony. PlayStation fans are getting concerned, and I think that's completely reasonable and understandable. Things can absolutely go wrong with live service games, as we've seen. But why this is so important is because essentially what this boils down to is Jim Ryan is being asked, why are you not copying Game Pass? Why are you not following Microsoft's lead with Game Pass? Because, Game Pass is supposed to be the future of gaming, right? The Netflix of gaming. And we see the success of Netflix. We see the success of Spotify and, for movies and music and whatnot. surely gaming is going to go in the same direction. And Jim Ryan is saying, no, I don't think so. I think that we already see where the future of gaming lies and where it makes the most sense. And that is in live service games, not actual subscription services like Game Pass. And so Sony is putting their money on live service games. This is why Sony is not making a Game Pass competitor, because they feel as though they're going to find either the same amount of success, if not even more success, with live service games that can potentially be successful in the long run than they will with a subscription-based model that is similar to Game Pass. And I think this is interesting because it really begins to paint a clear picture of where Sony stands right now and why so many people are maybe a little bit confused. Like, how come Sony isn't actually mirroring Game Pass? Why are they not copying Game Pass? And it's very clear by now that Sony just doesn't believe, at least as of right now, things could change. Sony doesn't believe that the Game Pass model is what is going to lead them to the type of growth and sustained, I guess you could say, engagement and success that they are looking for over time. And so in the future, if this does work out for Sony, what I could end up seeing is a very, hopefully, and this is an ideal version I'm painting in my head, a very healthy balance of single-player, AAA, narrative-driven games like we already know to expect from Sony, but a healthy amount of hopefully relatively successful and balanced being the key word there, live service games, and they can both kind of work together in tandem. And then on top of that, as Jim mentions, they do have PS Plus, and they do have 48 million subs, and that number continues to grow. So yeah, it's like a three-prong approach here, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Sony is not willing to just put all of their eggs in the, Game Pass-like subscription model basket, I guess you could say. And frankly, I think given Sony's position, Sony is not Microsoft. I think we all know that by now. They are not Microsoft. They are two very different companies in, very significant ways. I think it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes here, guys, to kind of go over these two quotes and break them down, because I think that it really gives us a good insight into PlayStation's direction and where they see the future of PlayStation headed, and why. And I also think that this explains why they've made some of the decisions they did with their PlayStation Plus rebrand, because something I have seen are quite a few people basically complaining to Sony, being like, we wanted a Game Pass competitor, and we wanted you to essentially do what Microsoft is with Game Pass, but with PlayStation and PlayStation games. And that's not what they're doing. And at the very least, I hope that maybe this can help you kind of understand why exactly they're not doing that. They're not, taking it off the table entirely. They're saying, look, it could change in the future, but they're not convinced. So there you go. That's going to do it for the video, guys. Be sure to leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share it out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.